You don't know if people are going to be interested or not. So, you know, you may or may not have the expertise in the area, but by being able to put the product out there, you're able to then find out and meet other individuals who are in that industry that can then give you feedback. So the first step that I recommend is whatever the idea is, there's a whole series of things that we can do to give you ideas on like what you want to get started with. But the first thing you've got to do is break it down to something very small and manageable that you can test. Unfortunately, I don't know if I'm going to get the time to do the bake-off like I wanted to with you guys, but with the actual baked goods, that was a perfect example. It's the opportunity for you to think about, well, I'd like to open this giant store. Great, don't start with the store yet. Literally get 12 goods, 12 baked goods, and start testing to see what's the feedback that you're going to get. What are you going to hear from your potential customers in terms of, do they like this? Do they not like this? Should I be charging more? Should I be charging less? Does it need to be smaller? Things of that nature. And that's the critical step that I think far too often that women don't do, is we're not willing to kind of be a failure, to be frank, because that's what you're doing when you're testing. You've got to get the feedback. You've got to hear the criticism that comes along with it. But if you do it that way, then you wind up spending a lot less in the long run, because you haven't then invested all of, you know, this working capital. I hear from business owners all the time. They want to start this really great business. I have all these ideas. Great, but you're going to invest $100,000 before you turn around good in doing a business that, to be frank, nobody wants. So start out very small, figure out a way to be able to test the product first. And then the big key is, and this is something that I think we're doing right now, you may not realize it, but the big mistake that business owners make is they're not keeping track of their money. That's why I do this game. So we're going to go through the next point where you're going to be able to purchase everything, but I'm just kind of curious for the feedback right at this point. What would you guys have done differently? Now playing kind of just 1 month. It's a 1 month scenario that you've in theory played right now. What would you have done differently from where you sit at right now? What would you have done differently when if you were to play this game again? I'm curious. Say it again?
I would have started out with more money.
But I only gave you $100, so what would you have done?
No, well, I'm saying myself. Like, I wouldn't have relied on a bank loan first.
Okay, so that's one way to do it.
I mean, as one.
So start out with more money is one option. What else?
Cut down expenses as much as possible.
How?
Finding more markets.
Right, like if we knew what these things were.
Yeah.
Right.
Some of them, we might have someone who knows how to do those, or we could have bartered, like, you know, for someone else to bring those costs down, or some of those things we might have. You know, like, even though we're making bags, we don't own leather in the back of our house.
Sure.
But there's 20 places that sell leather, so instead of getting it for the $40, I could have gotten it for $20 at the other leather guy.
Most definitely.
You know, or whatever. So.
And I will definitely take the responsibility for the heat on the business expenses this time, because I didn't have the full ones like I shared that I originally wanted. But the business expenses, just to let you know, usually range from $20 to $100 is normally the range that you kind of work from. So I was kind, because I kept everything around the $20, $30, $40 amount. But to your point, bartering is very critical and helpful. But there's the big key that I'm not hearing, and this is the perfect example of like why as women we need to have these conversations. Some of the teams have kind of figured it out in the middle of the game, but it's something else that you got to do. It's cutting down your expenses is not gonna, it's gonna help, but it's not fully gonna get you where you need to go. What's the big thing that you would do? It's along those lines, but you can't, let's just say you can't change the numbers. I keep the numbers where they are at the 40, the 60, and the 120, just to kind of keep it standard, but you're right. Ideally within a business, 3 things that you want to think about in any business you have is you want to buy low, sell high, and keep good records. It's actually a good thing to kind of jot down. Buy low, meaning you buy your products for as low as you possibly can. Sell high, ideally whatever you purchase your products for, the raw materials or whether it's the service you're producing, you're able to double the amount of money at minimum. You have to double the amount of money that you've invested into it. Otherwise it's not worth your time. So that's why you've got to do your math in advance. And then the key that this game really focuses on is keeping good records. Business owners are running out of business most often because they're not keeping track of what they're spending and they can't figure out what they need to calculate for the following month. But there's another big key piece that some of the teams figured out, kind of, sort of, but no one's kind of said it.
What were you doing with the credit option? Taking cash?
Talk to me about that.
I would assume that, well, first of all, cash is a bad idea in any business. Because more likely you're going to end up spending it on something else and not putting it back into your business or any of that. And I don't know, the credit options seem to end up giving you back more. Apparently, I know most businesses do run on credit more than they do run on a cash flow. So I haven't quite figured out exactly how that is.
Credit is definitely, there's a factor to it. That's a huge factor to it. What did you guys do, the 2 teams that ran out of money? What did you guys want to do? You borrowed money, but then when you borrowed money, there was a trick about how you borrowed money, and that's what the bigger factor is.
The loan?
Yeah, the loan. Well, you gotta pay interest at the end, but did you purchase just one unit or did
No,
you?
we purchased several.
Why?
Because it would make no sense to just take a loan out for just one item.
Right.